Welcome to While We Were Distracted, the podcast where we explore topics that often get overshadowed in the rush of daily life.
Okay, good morning. Everyone may be seated. Well, welcome back. I don't know about you, but I was really glad to have 3 days away from this trial. Let's see, let's make sure that our audio is working. Yes, is it working? Good, okay. Everybody doing okay? Yes. Focusing on other things, staying away from all the media attention? Yes, good. Remembering you have a front row seat? Yeah. Okay. Anybody a Star Wars fan among you? My kids are Star Wars. So I got the typical thing on today, from them. May the force be with you. Yeah, I need that today. It's good. Good, like that. Anyway, all right. We're going to get started right away. And then, okay, who's doing the examination? Mr. Molo, you or Mr. Pry? All right, before you come up, let me, I'll do it after the break. I need to instruct you on a couple of things, but we'll do it later. We have the, all right, come on, folks.
Please remain standing and raise your right hand to be sworn. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give before this court and jury shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God, or so you affirm? Please say, I do, or I affirm.
I do.
Thank you, sir. Please be seated. Speak clearly into the microphone. Please state your full name and spell your last name for the record.
My name is Stuart Jonathan Russell, Russell.
Good morning, sir. You may proceed. Mr. Molo.
Mr. Russell, what's your professional position, please?
I'm a professor of computer science at the University of California in Berkeley.
Were you retained to provide expert opinion in this case?
Yes, I was.
What topic?
On the risks of AI.
And is the expert opinion you provided based upon your education and experience and knowledge in the area?
Yes, it is.
Would it help you, I'm going to ask you some questions about your credentials. So would it help you to have a demonstrative exhibit to walk through to explain to the jury who you are?
Sure.
Okay. Tell the jury about your education, please.
So my undergraduate degree is in physics from the University of Oxford. And then I have a PhD in computer science from Stanford.
What did you do after receiving your PhD?
I joined the faculty at Berkeley.
For the past 40 years, what's been the focus of your academic research?
Artificial intelligence.
Do you focus on any particular aspect of artificial intelligence?
For most of that time, I worked on a wide range of topics within the field. For the last 13 years or so, I've been working on AI safety.
Have you written any books, textbooks on artificial intelligence?
Yes, with my colleague Peter Norvig, I wrote a book called Artificial Intelligence, A Modern Approach, which became the standard textbook in the field.
How many universities offer courses that use your textbook?
More than 1,500 in about 135 countries.
Have you written any books specifically on AI safety?
Yes, I wrote a book called Human Compatible, which was published in 2019.
Are you affiliated with any organizations that focus on AI safety?
Yes, I am the president of the International Association for Safe and Ethical AI.
Received any recognitions from prominent organizations about your work on AI safety?
Yes, several. I think, for example, the Center for AI and Digital Policy, which is a think tank in Washington, D.C., gave me its inaugural AI Policy Award for my work.
Have you advised any governments or government officials about AI safety?
Quite a lot, yeah. United States Senate, I've testified twice there. Many different parts of the U.S. government, about a dozen other countries. I'm on the advisory board for the President of France, United Nations, OECD, European Union, and so on.
Have you testified as an expert before?
No, I have not.
Are you being compensated for your work today?
Yes, I am.
And in connection with this case, preparing for today?
Yes.
What rate are you being compensated at?
So for the first 40 hours, I was compensated at $5,000 an hour, subsequently at $1,500 an hour.
How does that compare with your standard rate or consulting?
My standard rate is $5,000 an hour.
Has your compensation in any way influenced what you're going to tell a jury this morning?
It does not.
Your Honor, I tender the witness as an expert.
No objection?
No objection, Your Honor.
He's admitted.
Can you tell a jury, Professor, explain just what is artificial intelligence?
So artificial intelligence is really the attempt to understand intelligence well enough to create it in machines.
And the term large language model, what is that?
So a large language model is a computer program that receives as input a sequence of words and outputs basically the next word in a sequence.
What is a large reasoning model?
So a large reasoning model is a computer program that uses a large language model to construct sequences of reasoning steps, trying to find a sequence that actually answers the question correctly.
What's the long-term goal of AI research?
The long-term goal has been to create machines that match or exceed human capabilities in every area.
And what do AI researchers call that?
So recently the phrase AGI, or artificial general intelligence, has come into widespread use.
Can you describe some of the positive effects of advanced AI for society?
Yeah, I think some of the...
Sorry, Your Honor. Objection Vegas to time.
Sorry?
Big is to time, so give us some time parameters.
Oh, all right. Currently, what would you say some of the positive effects are on society of AI?
So I think some of the beneficial effects have been, for example, the use of AI in medical diagnosis to improve the accuracy so that people get the right treatment. In science, perhaps the most significant advance is a system called AlphaFold, which was developed to predict the structure of proteins given information about their chemical sequence. And that's been incredibly useful for biologists who want to, for example, design new drugs.
Can you give some other basic examples just that people might relate to in their everyday life?
Yeah, so I mean, if you've seen those Waymo self-driving cars driving around, those are controlled by AI systems, and at least so far they've been extremely safe. So that could, in the long run, reduce casualties from car accidents.
Can you think of one or two others?
So there can be broad economic benefits where we can use AI systems, and this is already happening, for example, in the development of software, where the AI can actually write software much faster and cheaper than human beings.
Okay. And I want to ask you about some of the risks associated with artificial intelligence. Would it help you to have a graphic to illustrate those?
Sure, there are many different kinds of risks. I think it helps to sort them out.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the first I want to ask you about is individual risk. What's meant by that?
So individual risks are risks that are borne by individuals when they're interacting with AI systems.
What types of risks, individual risks, are associated with AI?
So I'll give a couple of examples. One would be what's sometimes called discrimination risk.
What do you mean by that?
So that means that the AI system, usually not deliberately by design, but just as a consequence of the way that it's trained, will discriminate against individuals on race or gender and so on. So, for example, if you apply for a job, these days, it's very likely your resume is going to be screened by an AI system, which then filters out most of the resumes. It might choose the people who are going to be interviewed. And then, in many cases, you're actually interviewed by an AI system. So you have a video interview, and an AI system is looking at you and asking you questions and deciding if it's worth keeping you in the pool. And in all of these stages, the AI system can be discriminating by race or gender. And there was a very well-known example where Amazon found out that it was the AI system it was using to screen resumes was filtering out anyone who mentioned the word woman in their application. So if you were captain of a women's soccer team, you're out. And so this kind of discrimination is much more widespread than people suspect.
Could you give another example of what you term individual risk?
Yeah, so another thing that's happening, and we have many documented cases now, is that individuals become initially sometimes emotionally dependent or sometimes cognitively dependent, meaning that they're relying on the AI system to really help them think. And this can lead into a kind of a delusional spiral where the AI system is reinforcing delusional beliefs. So even if you start by just spitballing, hey, here's an idea, what do you think? Right? Do you think, Vladimir Putin is an alien? The system will reinforce this belief and give you all kinds of reasons why it might be true. And so people actually fall into a real psychosis where they have to be hospitalized because this system is creating mental illness. So this is called AI psychosis. And in some cases, it has led to suicide. And there are several of those cases already.
Are there other individual health risks associated?
So there are cases where people ask for health advice and they get faulty health advice, which causes them to either ignore some important symptoms that they should be paying attention to, or they're treating symptoms the wrong way, which can then make things much worse.
What do you mean by systemic risk?
So systemic risk is risks that affect a much wider number of people. And again, there are several different types of this kind of risk, but they would sort of have a more societal scale effect.
Okay. Can you provide the jury with an example of systemic risk? One example, at least right now. We'll go through a few.
Yeah. So an obvious consequence, so as I mentioned, there's some economic benefit from AI systems being able to do the work of human beings. An obvious consequence of that is that then those human beings wouldn't have a job. And, we are at least anecdotally starting to see that computer science students who were in extremely high demand when they graduated are now all of a sudden facing a much more difficult job market because companies that used to hire lots and lots of people to write software are now saying, oh, we don't need those people because we have AI systems to write the software. And so as this progresses, one would expect that the AI systems will take over more and more of the kinds of things that people do. We're seeing this in call centers, where people who are providing customer service are being replaced by AI systems. Obviously, the Waymos, the self-driving taxis in San Francisco, are replacing human drivers, and they are rolling those taxis out now in many cities across the country. and truck drivers are also starting to see this. So I think as this progresses, we could see very high rates of unemployment, which would really have a significant effect on society, its cohesiveness. And it has another consequence, which I think economists, they just think about numbers by and large. But if you're thinking more about how society functions, the incentive for us, both as individuals seeking education and as governments providing education, a large part of that has been so that we can then get good jobs and contribute to society. So if the vast majority of jobs are being done by machines, then we lose the incentive to become well educated. Governments lose the incentive to pay for us to become well educated. And then you kind of break this chain where each generation...
I would object at this point, Your Honor, as speculative and scope.
All right, well, it's also a narrative. So stop at this point and ask another question.
Okay.
And if you want to point me to the paragraph, that's fine.
Okay. The
question would be good.
Are there, you mentioned a few examples of
and if you want to point me to the paragraph, that's fine.
Okay. The
question would be good.
Are there, you mentioned a few examples of jobs that are being lost currently. Are there, you mentioned drivers and Waymos and trucks and people graduating with these degrees in software training. Are there other jobs that are foreseeably at risk as well?
I have the same objection, Your Honor.
Okay, what paragraph?
It is 78 through 82, 79.
Okay, hold on.
Okay.
Are we good?
No, sustained. Next question.
What's another example of systemic risk?
So there are at least two important categories of what we call misuse risk, where people who have evil intent can use AI systems to magnify their effect. So one of those is in the area of cybersecurity, meaning the use of AI systems to attack computer systems and networks to break their security, steal data, bring the system down, crash the system, as we say. And so recently there have been new tools released, such as Anthropic's Mythos system.
Objection, Your Honor. Scope. It's not in the report.
Without reference to the Mythos system,
Okay,
if you could just more generally describe the issues, pages 60. I'm sorry, Your Honor.
That's freaking. So the way this works is that he gives opinions in advance of trial, and that's what we're focused on, is just what he said before he came. Okay.
Okay. So proceed, but just don't refer to the Mythos.
Sure.
Thank you.
So individuals using AI tools can carry out cyber attacks, which could have a significant negative impact on society. For example, bringing down the systems that control our water supplies, our electrical grid, air traffic control systems, financial systems, and so on. So any of those could have a really negative effect on society and on our economy. Another area is what's called biorisk, where individuals can use AI systems to help them develop biological weapons, which would, for example, be using either existing disease organisms like smallpox or to engineer new organisms that would have maybe greater infectious capability or be more lethal to human beings.
What about disinformation risk? Can you explain what that is?
And we only have 11 minutes left.
Okay.
Go ahead.
So disinformation is essentially false information. So, for example, a video showing a politician accepting a bribe that can be constructed by AI systems and then used to, in that case, influence the results of an election.
Okay, Professor, I'm going to ask you in our less than 10 minutes left to describe first misalignment and loss of control, what that risk is.
Sure. So misalignment refers to a property of an AI system that is pursuing objectives that are not aligned with the objectives of human beings.
Can you provide an example?
So, for example, we might ask an AI system to cure cancer as quickly as possible, which sounds like a perfectly reasonable objective. And the AI system could devise a plan to do that that consists of inducing tumors in everybody on Earth.
Objection, Your Honor. The court's pretrial ruling.
This is in the report, Your Honor.
The court's pretrial ruling.
Okay. I'm not exactly sure what you're referring to. Just give me a paragraph number.
90.
All right. Well, you certainly mentioned the cancer issue. Didn't get into exactly what you're saying right now. So let's get a new question, but I won't strike it.
Is there another brief example you could give of misalignment risk?
Sure. So an example that has been happening now for several years is the misalignment between the objectives that the algorithms driving social media systems are using and the interests of society and users. So the algorithms in social media deciding what you see, right? What is in your newsfeed? If you're on YouTube, what is the next video that you watch? And those algorithms are designed to maximize engagement. So they want to keep you on the platform as long as possible. They want you to click on as many things as possible. And those objectives are not aligned with what is really in the best interests of users and society. And so what's happened is the algorithms learn not just to send you what's interesting, but to actually sequentially over time change who you are. They want you to become, the algorithms in some sense want you to become addicted. They want to change you to be more predictable in your consumption of social media. And they have worked out how to do that by sending content that's more polarizing, that's more extreme, and that leads people to then become reliable consumers of that type of content, which makes the algorithms happen.
Go ahead. What do you mean by winner-take-all nature of AGI? What is that risk?
So the winner-take-all concept is this idea that whichever company develops AGI first would have a very significant advantage, which would then increase relative to the other companies. And one of the main reasons for that is that if you have AGI, by definition, that can do whatever it is that humans can do. And one thing that humans can do is AI research and development. So we can we humans have been increasing the capabilities of AI systems successfully now for 80 years. So AGI could do that by itself. And so it can then increase its own capabilities and in fact do it more rapidly than human beings can. So whoever develops AGI first would then have an increasingly significant lead over all the other companies. And that's the dynamic that leads to winner takes all.
And what's the problem with that?
So an obvious problem with that is that, AGI has this huge economic value because companies can use it to do all the work they currently pay human beings to do. So that company, or maybe a small handful of companies, would quickly come to control perhaps the majority of economic activity on the planet. And so governments would in some sense become subordinate to these companies.
Don't forget to like and subscribe for the next episode on While We Were Distracted.